Okay, we are live. Uh, thank you everyone for joining us. We are really excited to have you for the third annual Black in Immuno Week. We are very happy. We made it through another year, so amazing. First, we would like to thank our major sponsors who have made this week possible. You can find the list of full sponsors on our website. For this keynote today, don't forget to tweet about it using the hashtag Black in Immuno Keynotes with each first letter capitalized. Uh, We'll also have live caption and ASL interpreters during the session. You can click at the bottom of the screen, the CC, to have access to captions. You can also submit your question throughout the keynote using the comment function, not the QA slide. As a reminder, we'll require all of our audience members to be polite, respectful while we are in this space. If we see something offensive, we'll be deleted automatically, and also you'll be banned from the platform. After the conclusion of the week, recorded videos will be posted on our YouTube channel, and the transcript also will be available on our website using our website, which is blackinimmuno.org. Org is ORG. I'm really happy to be the moderator today. My name is Elaine Kwame. I am one of the co-founders of Black in Immuno. I'm currently a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Chicago, and I'm really excited today to introduce our keynote speaker, Professor Gordon Awandare. Dr. Awandare is the Pro Vice Chancellor responsible for academic and student affairs at the University of Ghana. He's a professor of biochemistry, cell and molecular biology, and the founding director of the West African Center for Cell Biology of Infectious Pathogen, WACBIP. He obtained his bachelor in chemistry, a degree in 1998, and his master also in biochemistry in 2002, both from the University of Ghana. He subsequently undertook his doctoral studies at the University of Pittsburgh Graduate School of Public Health in Pennsylvania, where he graduated with a PhD degree in infectious diseases and microbiology in 2007. Prof. Awandare did his postdoctoral fellowship at the Malaria Vaccine Division of the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research in Silver Spring, Maryland. Fast forward in 2014, he led the establishment of WACPIC, which has developed into a world-class research center providing advanced education to over 300 scientists from 15 African countries at master's, doctoral, and postdoctoral level. Without further ado, welcome you, Dr. Awandare.
Thank you very much, Elaine, and good day to everybody. For those of us on the continent, it's good evening, and those in the US and other parts of the world that are behind, it's afternoon or even morning in some areas. So it's a great pleasure to be joining you today and to be giving the keynote to kick off the Black in Immuno Week 2022. My talk, let's see if we can share this. Share screen. I hope you can see. Elaine, can you confirm if you can see?
Can see you.
Okay. Okay, so I hope you can see. I'm not getting feedback, but I hope you can see. So today I'm going to talk about the basic science landscape on the African continent, and to talk specifically about what WACBIP has done since we started this in 2014. The COVID pandemic sort of tested the infrastructure, the scientific infrastructure of the African continent. And whilst it exposed the weaknesses that still exist, I think that it also revealed that there has been some major progress in terms of building scientific capacity on the continent. And that's why institutes such as ours were able to make the contribution that we made in this pandemic. So historically, African science has been held back because of a lack of research infrastructure and expertise in basic science. And this is due to a number of reasons, but the main ones being that equipment for basic science research is very expensive, and the development of the required, critical mass of skills has been hampered by the brain drain. Normally, we send our brightest young scientists to train overseas, and less than half of them come back. And so it seems like we've been treading water for a long time. Part of the reason is that our governments have not been willing or not able to commit the resources that are necessary to build the capacity that will enable us to do high quality basic science research and be globally competitive. Indeed, more than 15 years ago, heads of state of African countries made a commitment to spend at least 1% of their gross domestic product on science and research. To date, less than 10 African countries have achieved that, and even those that have achieved it, they have barely scratched the 1%. And historically, funding agencies that have supported research on the continent have focused on smaller research institutes that are normally outside the university environment. And bear in mind that on the African continent, the majority of advanced training takes place in the university environment. And so you had funding going into institutes that were outside the university environment, and that also contributed to a lack of sustainable capacity building. However, in the last 10 to 15 years, there have been some positive changes in this direction, and mostly due to two things: that there have been more projects or grants led by African scientists that has enabled direct investment into African institutions. And this is credit to some of the funders who have made changes to their policies to allow this to happen. So a number of initiatives that have used this approach, I would name a few, but these are the ones that I think that have made the biggest impact over the last 10 to 15 years. The World Bank started a project called the African Centers of Excellence, which was a call that was made in 2013, and awards were made in 2014. And this essentially was seeking to create centers of excellence which will provide specialized training in specific areas for the benefit of the entire continent. And so they've done now 3 phases of this. Through a competitive process, they've selected centers and funded them to support equipment, civil works, and training fellowships for master's and PhD students. And so far, 45 universities in 19 different countries have benefited from this, and 58 centers of excellence have been established through this program. Overall, the investment has been nearly 500 million. The other significant initiative was the Welcome Deltas Africa initiative. This is an initiative that was born out of a collaboration between the African Academy of Sciences and the Wellcome Trust. And it was similar to the World Bank project, but this one was more focused on health research. And in the end, 11 programs were funded in 8 countries, but the consortia, included partners from 54 African countries. And these also supported all levels of training, master's, PhD, postdoc, and so on and so forth, as well as fiscal capacity building in terms of equipment and civil works. This was a $100 million investment. And now they're about to do a phase 2, which involved a commitment of around 64 million US dollars. There's also the H3 Africa project. H3 Africa stands for Human Heritage and Health. And this was a partnership that was formed between the NIH and the Wellcome Trust, and they supported many African consortia across the continent. Majority of these led by African scientists who were on the continent, with others who were also in the diaspora. So this also had a major impact across the continent. You see on the map where all the different projects were located or are located. Then the UK government had a very major initiative to try to shift resources to support overseas development. And this was a change in their strategy whereby they put together all the overseas funding and put it into a fund that could be accessed through different funding schemes. And this was a 1.5 billion pound fund. And this allowed some direct investments into African countries, and particularly in African institutions, including universities. So WAGBIP is a center that I started with colleagues of mine at the University of Ghana in 2014. At the time, it was led by faculty from the Department of Biochemistry, Cell and Molecular Biology, where I was the head of department, and then the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research, which is in the university, and then the Department of Biomedical Engineering. We had support from other units, but these were the major units that supported it. So essentially what happened was that around between 2010 to 2013, at the University of Ghana, there was a critical mass of young scientists who had trained overseas and came back home. And there was the need to continue to do high quality research, but the environment did not support that. So what we did was to come together and do something about it, and that was how the idea of WAGBIP came about. It was basically a spontaneous effort from a group of young scientists who wanted to create an environment that can provide high quality basic science training for African scientists, so that they would not have to go overseas to get trained like we did. So essentially what it is a research and training center within the College of Basic and Applied Sciences at the University of Ghana. And all these initiatives that I have described that have provided support to capacity building on the continent, WAGBIP positions ourselves to benefit from that. So we started with the World Bank African Centers of Excellence project, which is what we used to start the center. Then we became one of the grantees for the Deltas Africa program. And we've been part of several H3 Africa programs and some of the UK GCRF funded programs through the National Health Institute in the Research Institute in the UK. ARUA is African Research Universities Alliance, which is a collaboration or a partnership between selected African universities. And they have also supported us as one of their vaccine research hubs. So essentially, our vision was to establish a major hub for biomedical research training that we could use as a vehicle to develop homegrown, globally competitive African science leaders. So our theory was that the Africa we want would be one that we have African scientists living on the continent, working on the continent, collaborating with each other, and doing globally competitive scientific research that can lead to innovations in the areas of health and other disciplines. So for us, the critical ingredients was that we needed to build a full training pipeline that allowed us to identify leaders from the very early stages of their career up to when they became senior scientists. And then we had to create an environment that would support high quality training and research, and which would then lead to development of science leaders. We needed to ensure that there was equity, diversity, and inclusion in all our training and the opportunities that we provided. And the critical part of it was that we wanted to provide trainees with a skill set for independent research in the peculiar research environment in Africa. Often we forget to realize that doing research in Africa has its specific challenges, which you would never learn doing research in California or in New York or London for that matter. So training people locally gave us the opportunity to give them the critical skill set, which are not necessarily in the laboratory, but how to navigate a very complex system and a very challenging supply chain for reagents and consumables. And so eventually we wanted to build a network of young scientists who would be bonded together through their training, and so they would continue to collaborate and work as independent scientists and health professionals. So we believe that if we train these scientists as cohorts, where they work together, they laugh together, they cry together, and they supported each other, they will continue to be good friends and collaborators going into the future. And then, obviously, the end goal is to help to drive health innovation and support public health interventions. So the main thing was to develop a graduate program. So we developed a graduate program for master's, PhD, and this we took through accreditation at the national and to the international level through the Royal Society of Biology in the UK. So our programs are mainly 1 year of coursework and 3 years of research for the PhD, 1 year of coursework and 1 year of research for the masters. And so our main programs are molecular cell biology of infectious diseases at the master's and the PhD level. We're currently going through the process to introduce a bioinformatics MSc, which will be 1 year. In addition, we provide a lot of short courses, which allow us to deliver specific techniques within a week or two. So what were the critical ingredients for establishing a system that would work? First, you have to navigate university governance. Those of us who have worked in African universities or universities globally for that matter, universities are normally very rigid and bureaucratic. And so for us to be efficient, we had to navigate this system and put together a governance system that will allow us to be more efficient than a normal university unit. So we set up a semi-autonomous system which allows us to have more control. But in exchange, we had to raise our own resources. And so the university did not have to fund our operations. So we are funded fully from grants that we bring in. But still, we're integrated within the university system with a clear governance structure, with a reporting line that is embedded in the university governance structure. But it gives us flexibility to engage units across the different boundaries of the university. Financially, we're able to keep our funds separate from the global university funds, and that allows us to have more control and more transparency in the way we operate our finances. And then we have to set up a para support system. So we have our own staff who do most of the things that the university staff would have to do, but we do them in para with the university system to ensure that our business is not impeded by inefficiencies in the university system. So the other thing we had to do to create a full pipeline of training, we had to synergize funding from different sources. So we started with World Bank funding, went to Wellcome Trust. Since then, we've had many funders come on board with different fellowships. And so what we've done is to synergize all these so that students can compete for fellowships right through the career path. Those who come from undergrad, they join through internships and short courses. They can compete for master's fellowships. After master's, they can compete for PhD fellowships. After PhD, they can compete for early postdoctoral fellowships. And after that, they can have advanced career or senior postdoctoral fellowships for career development. So generally, we operate a system that is based on full transparency, full competitiveness, and everything is based on merit in terms of how fellowships are awarded. The other thing we had to do is create an environment that is world-class. So we invested a lot of the resources that we mobilized into buying equipment, putting up a building, and basically providing an environment that allows students to feel that they can do whatever others in New York or London or Switzerland can do. Our scientific equipment, we've organized them into what we call technology platforms. So we have flow cytometry, we have next generation sequencing, protein expression, microscopy, and so on and so forth. So this allows us to maintain the equipment and to ensure that the equipment their lives are prolonged and they're available for students to use. Then the most critical thing was to build partnerships. So we had the approach of bringing on board partners, all the faculty who were involved in the program. They brought on board their partners and we welcomed them as WACBIP partners. And so we grew the network, and now we have a very extensive partner network, starting from the institutional level to national, regional, and international. And this is anchored by a nucleus of about 45 faculty members within the University of Ghana. And these then branch out to several institutions across the African continent and globally. And so all these collaborators, not only do they collaborate with us for research, they also support us in mentorship and also the teaching to ensure that we are providing high quality scientific training and research. We've also made a deliberate effort to engage African scientists in the diaspora, and this has really been one of the most significant contributions we've made, is to really actively try to bring back some of the talent that left the continent for training. So we have, having created an environment that is vibrant, that is world class, we had to provide a system that provided a livable salary for scientists, especially those who lived overseas and wanted to come back. So generally, we use a system where we support all our scientists to get a fellowship, so they can support their own salary and not rely on university or government salaries. And then once they came in through a fellowship, then we could work through to integrate them into permanent positions within the university. And this has really worked in terms of helping us, bring about 7 young Africans who did their PhDs overseas and then, were living or working overseas, and we were able to give them the platform to return to the continent. Here on the right of the screen, I'm showing you a picture of some of the young, talented African scientists who have come back to work at WACBIP, having trained and lived overseas for a while. And this creates a chain where some of them come and then they also train others and attract other younger people to come. And this is what you see on the left. In terms of our research mandate, we have basically taken an approach that is focused on understanding disease mechanisms to guide innovative solutions for healthcare on the continent. So we use, basically our approach is based on using molecular and cellular, approaches to understand disease mechanisms, and through that to generate new knowledge that will guide strategies for diagnosis, vaccines, and drugs. And so we are not tied to a particular disease, even though we started with infectious diseases. Our faculty expertise is broad, and some of them do non-communicable diseases. So the 3 main streams that we have is exploiting pathogen biology to develop novel diagnostics, vaccines, and drugs, looking at understanding the molecular mechanisms for disease susceptibility to infectious diseases, and then looking at the interaction between infectious disease and non-communicable diseases. And then looking at understanding non-communicable disease and the genetic markers that could be used for early diagnostics and early detection, which can lead to better outcomes for non-communicable diseases. So if you take stock of what we've done so far and what we've achieved, having invested over $40 million into infrastructure, equipment, research, and training fellowships, we have identified 4 pathways to impact, and this is how we drive our impact through the training, the research, communication, and public engagement, and then our partnerships. So with the training, uh, up to before COVID, we had provided fellowships to more than 300 African scientists from 15 African countries. So these include 182 for masters, 102 for PhD, and 29 at the postdoctoral level. And these have a good percentage of females participating. There's room for improvement, but we have a good percentage of females in our program. And if you look at these across the map, you'll see that obviously majority are in Ghana, but you see good representation across the sub-region of West Africa. But even going across to East Africa and Southern Africa, we have had fellowships given to students to come from all these countries to train at WAGBIP over the last 8 years. So where have our students gone? One of the things that we've been doing is doing monitoring and evaluation and trying to track the impact of our training. So looking at where our students have gone and what they are doing. And this is just a snapshot of the responses we've had for the masters. The vast majority have gone on to do PhD, you would see there. Many of them are in academia or research. So if you look on the right, you see that majority of them are either doing PhD or they're working in a research institution. Others are in other educational institutions and health institutions or laboratories. So basically, we are achieving what we set out to do, which is to build the workforce for these particular areas. For the PhD, is similar. Majority are doing postdoc or they are in academia as lecturers. Some are in the public sector and then industry as well. But again, the target of our training is really where these people are going. What about the postdocs? That's the interesting one. Many of these postdocs are some of the diasporan scientists that we brought back home. And it's very refreshing to see that the majority of them have stayed on the continent. If you look on the right-hand side, you see that out of the 19 that we have tracked, only one has left the continent. So 95% of them are still on the continent as research fellows, as lecturers in universities, or in other research institutions or health systems. So, in addition to our own internal evaluation, the World Bank did a study to look at the impact of WAGBIP as part of their own assessment of our impact since they funded us for many years. And it was very interesting to see that what they found was actually better than what we have been able to do internally. So, for example, they found that 79% of industry stakeholders cited the unique set of skills of our graduates and their knowledge of the latest technologies. Okay, 40% of industry stakeholders indicated our graduates made an impact on their organization, and that this was because they had new knowledge and expertise. Okay, if you look at our interns, 88% of the industry stakeholders found that they had skills that were very relevant to their operation. So this reinforces that we are achieving our goals of building a highly skilled workforce for the African continent in the area of health and biomedical science. What about the scientific research? What about the academic aspect of it? So we've published over 350 papers. Nearly all of these are led by our students or our fellows. So that alone is a significant change from what historically has happened. But in terms of our research areas, Malaria is the biggest one that we work on. COVID, even though new has shot to the top, is almost a second on our list of diseases that we published on. And then all the others follow over there. On the right, you see our recent paper on some of the genome sequencing we've been doing on COVID since the pandemic began. In addition to the academic arena, we have also had an impact on the innovation space in the biotech field. So one of our fellows, Dr. Yabediako, he took a bold step to start a biotech company called Yamachi, and they've been doing very well within the last 2 years that they've been operating. They've mobilized significant resources, and they're really making a lot of impact and building a lot of partnerships, which we think with WAGBIP working together with them, I think we can really change the biotech space in Ghana and other African countries. So now, where do we go from here? We try to scale up what we're doing, trying to scale up the impact. So we're using some of the networks that we formed to build this. So there's one network that we are leading called WANIDA, West African Network of Infectious Disease Centers of Excellence. And this has partners in, Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Guinea, and also Benin recently. And in essence, we're trying to, share our experiences and best practices with colleagues in these institutions so that together we can, try to recreate the successes that we've had and that others have had at Redeemers University, for example, where we have a center there that has also done exceptionally well. So we try to spread the best practices, to try to replicate the successes of the centers that have worked so that we can build the critical mass that we need to get to the Africa that we want. But there's still a lot of work to be done. When we started this, it was, it looked like a very wild vision. But we've had a very strong response from the young people on the continent. This is an example of our last major recruitment we did before COVID, where we had 10 fellowships to give. We advertised for 10 PhD fellowships, and we had over 500 applications from across the continent. The map shows you where all the applications came from, basically widely, distributed. So, the desire is there. The young people are motivated. They are ready for opportunities, and they are just looking for a chance to develop their talent. And so we've made progress, but would African governments step up? Would they commit the resources that they need to do to make these types of efforts sustainable, to make sure that the environments that we're creating can be sustained? Then there's a critical need for the private sector to grow in West Africa and in many parts of Africa. There's hardly any biotech industry. And so a lot of the work we do, we don't have the private sector partners that need to take the knowledge and then take it further and develop into product and to innovate. In addition, we need the private sector as an outlet for the people we're training. We're training so many people. We don't want all of them to be in the universities or be in research institutions. We need them to take the knowledge and go to industry and innovate and create products. And so we need a vibrant industry to be able to provide that opportunity for the trainees coming out of institutions such as WAGBIP. And so that is another area where we're looking for growth in. So to end, since this is a young audience, Black in Immuno is a young audience, and so the journey that I have walked, I wanted to share a few bullets of some of the things that are critical for surviving and thriving as a young scientist, especially in Africa. you need to be committed to what you're doing. I always ask my students, how badly do you want to succeed? And what are you willing to give for it? You need to be able to make some sacrifices in order to be successful, because where we are, and nothing comes easy, and you need to really go above and beyond to be successful. So you need the full commitment. You need to be competent. You need to be honest with yourself. You need to realize that in order to be successful, you need to be technically good. You need to be able to write well. You need to be able to speak well. So if you are lacking in any of these areas, you need to seek help and build your capacity in those areas, because these are three key aspects of your skill set that you need in order to be successful as a scientist. You need a good work ethic. You need high intensity. You need to be consistent. You need to be competitive. There's nothing wrong with being competitive. This is how you can be successful. You need to always go to win. And so that work ethic of being intense and consistent is necessary for success. You need to be effective. You need to constantly reevaluate what you are doing, and to assess how effective you are, whether you're making progress or not. And if you are not, what is preventing you from making progress? And in that way, you should be able to be ruthless enough to cut off some of your habits or your weaknesses that cause you not to be effective. And my motto is no excuses. That's what I tell my students, that there's no excuse. You have to take away the excuses and do what you need to do. You need to be very independent. It's where we have worked, nobody really makes your career their priority. So when it's 5 o'clock, everybody is going home, and you are left to your fate. So you need to try to be independent and not rely on people to be successful. So even if you ask people to do something for you, you have to think about what you can do if the person doesn't do it. So you have to always plan to be independent and not indulge in self-pity. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Everything is within your power to be able to make progress. You have to be open to criticism and suggestions. There are people who are more knowledgeable, who are more experienced than you. And if you're a young scientist, you need to be humble enough to learn and to listen. So you have to build your visibility. Conferences, workshops, networking, like you are here, these are places where you can get to know people and also to find out about opportunities. And this is how you grow as a scientist. Publications on the African continent, we have many places where people publish, or people are taken advantage of by predatory journals, and they end up throwing away their good work in bad journals, and that affects your career development. So this is something that African scientists need to be mindful of, that you make sure that you're publishing in genuine outlets. You need mentorship. You need somebody who has the time for you, who can read over your work, who can advise you, who can talk to you. Often young people think that they want to go for the biggest superstar professor in their university, but some of these people do not have time for you. So you're better off with a moderately successful professor who has time for you than a very successful professor who has no time for you. So this is something that young people need to be mindful of. And finally, you need some luck to be successful. If you do everything you have to do and make sure you're ready, your luck will come. But you need a little bit of luck to make it. And so you get your good luck charm. Wherever you get it from, make sure you have your good luck charm and wait for your opportunity. So I would like to end here by thanking my team, the laboratory team, who have worked so hard, especially during the COVID time, all the risk involved in working 24/7 to ensure that we supported our nation to respond to this pandemic and to do good science in the process. We have a very strong team to manage, the center, who have supported me to manage the center over the years. And of course, our fellows, all the young people who believe in the vision and who continue to support what we do and are enthusiastic and bring energy and innovation to what we do. And then finally, to our collaborators, both on the continent and globally, who have shown so much commitment and believe in what we've done. So I would like to end by thanking all our funders We have so many funders who have come on board and supported us in different ways. And so I'd like to acknowledge all of them, including some who are not even on this slide. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Wow, really amazing, amazing talk. Really, thank you for sharing with us the landscape of science in Africa and really how work data has been able really to change the narrative and really elevate the quality of science on the continent. We're really really happy to have you. We're gonna continue this keynote with the questions now. Questions from the audience. We have a couple of questions already. Um, we also have a bunch of comments really testifying really the impact of Workbig, of a lot of people that have been able to get the training from Workbig and really are successful in their career. So that's really a testament of really the great job that Workbig is doing. So really thank you to you. Okay, so I'm going to start with the questions. We have two questions from Dr. Sarah Suleiman. So I'm going to read the first question to you. It seems that capacity development efforts in Africa still, sorry, still highly rely on external funding and thus control the research agenda. So how do we still maintain agency when we partake in those funding schemes?
Yeah. So, well, I think that it is true that we still rely a lot on external funding. But what we have done is that we are not dependent on any particular funder, and no funder can tell us what we should prioritize. So we go out there and compete, just like everybody in the US competes for NIH grants. We compete for grants with our ideas and our research priorities. And so I think that whilst it's true that problem of being dictated to as to what we should prioritize. So generally, we do research that's relevant to our people. That's why you see that the majority of our work is in malaria and COVID and other, neglected diseases that are relevant to our people, directly relevant to our people. So yes, it's true that African governments need to step up and provide some local support because a center like WAGBIB, I mean, right now, 80% of the funding we get is from overseas, and I think that to be sustainable, we need our governments to step up and also provide the resources. So that's something that is an Africa-wide problem. Like I mentioned, there was the commitment to spend 1% of GDP on science and research, but it has never really happened in many countries, and that is what is holding us back. And then we need injection into biotech. We need private investment into industry, biotech and pharmacy and all that. And this is what we need in order for the research and innovation space to be vibrant and sustainable.
Awesome. The second question is there are specific issues that impact African women, and there are many of us in support roles, but are rarely supported in leadership position. So, what's your vision in changing that in light of the diversity and inclusion lens?
Well, so in fact, one of the things that we are very proud of at YBIB is that we really prioritize our women, and we go to any lengths to make sure that women are comfortable at YBIB. We all the safeguarding that we put in place, every opportunity we make it equal for males and females. In fact, now what we do for our recruitment is that when we go through the process of recruitment, when we get to the final stage where we are dealing with people who are 5 spots or 10 spots, we split the positions into 2 equal parts, half for women, half for men. So we take the top 5 men and top 5 women and put them together and give the award. So we make sure that there's no disadvantage because somebody is a woman and is dealing with 3 children at the same time, and the other is a man who is not married and who is having a free life, So we we ensure that there's equitable access to all our programs. And there are many women out there who have gone through the WAGBIP system, and they can give testimony to how we've supported them way above and beyond what is normally done in training programs.
That's awesome. Um, just to piggyback on that, you also mentioned about being very intentional about recruiting African scientists that have left the continent. And I know, especially in the US, there's been a lot of efforts to try and recruit diverse talents in immunology or in science in general. So, can you also give a little bit of more tips in terms of like how the strategy that you put together, just elaborate a little bit on them, how you put the strategy together to really bring those talent back on the continent? I think that would be super helpful also for programs directed that are with us today.
Yeah, so it's really three steps. First step is to create the environment that when they come and see, they say, okay, I can come here and do science. I can come here and continue to do what I'm doing in NYU or what do you call it, Stanford or wherever. So you have to create the environment. That's what we did first, is to build a world-class environment that can support high quality science. That's the first thing. Second thing is that you have to have a system for providing a livable wage. In most African institutions, the salary is so poor that nobody wants to leave the US or the UK and come here and cannot afford 3 meals a day or cannot afford a decent accommodation. So you have to make sure that those basic fundamentals are in place. And so we had to develop our own sort of wage structure that's different from the university system, that allows us to provide livable salaries from the grants that we bring in. So that's the second thing. And the third thing now is to support them to write grants. So in fact, most of the scientists that we brought back, we supported them to write a grant. Okay. And then when they got a grant, they came home with a grant. So they come home and they don't have to start from zero. They come with a grant, they have a project, they have a salary, and then that's how the transition works smoothly. So those are the three critical things.
That's really amazing. So the next question also continue on this, topic of recruiting. As we know, Black in Immuno is very diverse in terms of like Black people from all over the world. So are there also opportunities for non-African Black scientists that are interested in WAGBI? Are these opportunities also available to them?
Yeah, massive. In fact, as we speak, we have two young American women who are working at WAGBI on different fellowships. So we have most of our funding is for African scientists. So we cannot give a fellowship to study at WAGBI because the funding we get is for African scientists. But we provide the support for you to apply for fellowship that allow you to come and work at WAGBI. So as we speak, we have two of such young ladies here working at WAGBI through a fellowship that they won in the US that gave them an opportunity to come and work here. And we support those type of applications. So if you reach out to us and say, this is an opportunity for me to apply for $50,000 to come on board and support you to write the application and give you a strong letter of support that says we'll host you, and this is our environment that we've created, and this is how this will be beneficial for your development. And many times such applications are successful, and we have people coming to spend some time here with us. In addition to that, we have faculty who also come on a fellowship to come and teach, so they get a fellowship that allows them to come and work, collaborate with us and teach, not just students, but even, senior faculty can come through different funding schemes to come and work here. But we always support you to access funding to come.
I see. That's really good. On that note, also for labs that are in the US, in the UK, wherever in the world that want to like interact with Workbig, is there like a pipeline that's already established? So people, let's say they have a question on COVID, they want to collaborate with Workbig. Like, how would this work practically?
Well, so we have a website, wagbib.org. When you go there, you can look at the range of things we do. We have quite a vibrant website where we put all our information there. It's currently being redeveloped, so there are some things changing, but you'll find very relevant information there. And we have contact information. You have email addresses you can email for whatever information you want. If you are a faculty looking to collaborate with us, you can email me, or you can email any of the faculty who are on the website based on their expertise. So we have a list of the faculty and their various areas of expertise, and you can email any of them directly, or you can email me, or you can email the general WAGBIP email, which it will then be redirected to the appropriate quarters. So we are very open for collaborations and all kinds of partnerships that are mutually beneficial to both sides.
Good. Okay, so one more question. Okay, two more questions from Yassine. Uh, his question is: how important was it to focus on diseases plaguing Africa versus fundamental scientific questions to get funding?
Yeah, it's very important. The disease is important in getting the funding. So, when I do grant talks, I always tell my students that your context is important. Um, if I'm writing a grant that is based on completely in vitro RNA technology experiments, I'm not going to be competitive compared to somebody who is in Silicon Valley or somewhere like that, because they have better tools, better equipment to do these things than I have. So, in order for me to be competitive, I need to focus on locally relevant, issues, which is why we do a lot of malaria and COVID and things like that, which are very much locally relevant. So, yes, it is true that you need to focus on diseases that are relevant in order for you to be competitive in grants. But it's also true that that's a good use of our time too. So it's not a bad thing that you have to focus on locally relevant diseases. So if I wrote a grant for a disease that's very rare in Africa, but that's more common somewhere else, I'm not likely to get it because it's not a problem on the continent.
Okay, so we have another question that's very specific for Wagbig, asking about whether there's a mouse facility in Wagbig.
A what, please?
A mouse facility. Like, do
A
you
what
guys
facility?
mouse?
Oh, mouse. Oh, mouse facility. No, we don't have a mouse facility in house, but we have two institutions that we collaborate with to do animal work. Noguchi, which is on the university campus, which is one of our major partners, they have animal house, a big animal facility. And then we also have what you call the Center for Plant Medicine Research, which is a few kilometers outside the university, which also has a good mouse facility. So we collaborate with them to do our animal studies. That's where we do our antibody, production and things like that.
Thank you. I think we have time for one last question. There's no question in the chat, so I'll ask a question. I have a personal question in terms of like your journey, because I see that you did your postdoc, in Maryland, and then you transitioned back to Ghana. And it seems like, one sentence, but like, can you elaborate a little bit about that gap, from the postdoc to like what went through your mind, deciding to make the switch, and then Rugby wasn't there, so like you created those opportunities. Like, really, what drove you to do that?
Yeah. So yeah, that's an interesting question. I didn't have time to talk about all those details, but basically, I did my PhD in the U.S. in Pittsburgh. But when I was leaving Ghana to go to the U.S., I was very clear in my mind that I was going to get skills and come home. So at no particular time did I ever think that I was going to stay in the US. So whatever I was doing, it was part of my plan to come home. plan to go back home. I was acquiring skills to go back home. So every day I was planning how to go back home and be successful. I never thought about so for example, I didn't buy a house in the US because I deliberately said I'm not going to buy a house. If I don't want to, I'm not going to stay here. So I wouldn't buy a house. Okay. I wouldn't buy an expensive car that will take me 50 years to pay, So I had the mindset I was going to go home. Okay. So that's what helped me a lot. If psychologically you tune yourself that you are going to go home, I think you would go home. But if you cannot get your mind around that, then it's difficult to physically go home. Yeah, so I think that's something that helped. I mean, when I was getting ready to go home, some of my friends in the US they thought I was crazy. They said, "What are you doing? Are you crazy?" you know, you're working at Walter Reed. You're working with the U.S. Army, and this is a good job. Why are you going to the University of Ghana? What is there? There's nothing there. What are you going to do there? You know, but I always felt that my talents were more useful here, and it was a risk to come here. But I also knew that if I came and things were so bad, I can always go back because I've been in the US for 70 years at the time. And so I knew that I could find my way back to the US if all failed. If I came here and after 10 years, nothing was working, I could go back to the US. But fundamentally, I felt that the skills that I had would be more useful here rather than going to work in a place where it was a good environment. But I always felt that if I removed myself from there, I would be replaced the next day and nothing would change really. But if I came to Ghana, I would be bringing some skills and talent that would be useful to the people. And that's what always motivated me that I had to go, despite all the risk and the poverty that was waiting for me.
That's very brave and self-discipline, very inspiring. So yeah, thank you so much. I think we can round up. Really thank you, Dr. Gordon Awandare, for the words that you shared with us today. Was very, very inspiring. Thank you for the audience for listening and really asking questions. We'll be here again tomorrow for the next set of session. You have basic immunology and immunology crossover. Right now, the next hour, we have networking sessions, so you can stay on the platform and network with other people. So thank you, everybody, and see you later.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.